1212 AD, 5106 AM. Planet Phoenix passed through the inner solar system, completing its 138-year orbit. No records of a sighting are known to the author. A peculiar story relates to this year. A teenage boy in France named Stephen of Cloyes was visited by a celestial being, or so he believed, in the form of a voice that instructed him to collect together 50,000 children to leave their homes and families, to embark on a holy war for God and take back the Holy Land from the evil Muslims. This began the Children's Crusade. Word spread and children from all over Europe travelled toward Constantinople and southeast toward Jerusalem. Researcher John Keel wrote that the thousands and thousands of children involved vanished en masse. At the time, the popular explanation was that they disappeared because they had been abducted by slavers. Keel believes that slavery only accounts for a small percentage of these lost children, and provides evidence in his book Our Haunted Planet that these children, entire villages, and even ocean-going ships have all had their entire populations and crews abducted by extraterrestrial beings. This is exactly 828 years, two cursed Earth periods of 414 years, before 2040 AD, when Phoenix initiates a pole shift and millions of children will wander the ruined cities of Europe, aimlessly searching for family, friends, food, and shelter. 1. Our Haunted Planet. 1214 AD, 5108 AM. Genghis Khan led the Mongol army against China and defeated them, collapsing the Qin dynasty by capturing Peking. Then he captured Turkestan, Persia, Armenia, India, to Lahore, and southern Russia. 1215 AD, 5109 AM. King John of England drafted the Magna Carta, guaranteeing the rights and privileges of the nobility and church against monarchical influence, while providing concessions to the commons. Famous for establishing trial by jury, which was actually an ancient Roman institution. Also in this year, the Fourth Lateran Council, called by Pope Innocent III, urged the enactment of laws against Jews in the Papal States, especially Spain. 1. Christ, the Power and the Passion. 1216 AD, 5110 AM. The papacy in Rome officially recognized the Order of the Dominicans in honor of Dominic de Guzman to combat heresy and the enemies of the Church. As the Catholic Church's secret police, they would be responsible for the countless horrid deaths of many people. These men would grow into an international organization dedicated to preserving Roman Catholic interests as espionage agents and counterinsurgency operatives. Through the Dominican order, the Church would become unbelievably rich, as innocents were falsely accused, tortured to death or executed afterward, and all their estates confiscated by the Church because they were proclaimed as heretics. 1. The Jesus Papers. 2. Christ, the Power and the Passion. 1217 AD, 5111 AM. On through 1221 AD, the Fifth Crusade, not much is accomplished in Egypt. 1. Wars that changed the world. 1219 AD, 5113 AM. Mongol armies led by Genghis Khan overran the Shah of Iran, Persia, invading the Khwarezm Empire. There was no intention of invading such a faraway region until the Persians apprehended a group of Mongol merchants, robbed them of their wares, treated them disrespectfully, and shaved their faces and burned the skin so their hair would not grow back. Released with nothing, some made it back to tell the other Mongols, and after hearing the story, the Khan demanded reimbursement from the Muslims but was refused. Angered, the Mongol army travelled over 2,000 miles simply to retrieve the head of the Shah of Persia. Invading Persia, the Mongols raided villages and towns, destroyed castles and killed all Islamic people they came across. Entire fields of livestock were slaughtered in retribution, left rotting. Though severely outnumbered, the Mongols, through organised ferocity, effectively slew 75% of all those living in the Khwarezm Empire. The Shah fled 200 miles to the Caspian seashore and committed suicide when an elite force of Mongols caught up with him, men that were determined to get his head. 1225 AD, 51:19 AM. In the 476th year of the Abbasid dynasty, it ends with al-Nasir's rule in Baghdad. 1. Time Almanac, 2008. Time Encyclopaedia Britannica. 1228 AD, 51:22 AM. King Frederick II of Germany was raised in a court that allowed him the opportunity to acquire a Muslim view of Christianity, as well as his Christian view of Islam. As the regent, he was constantly at variance with the Pope and the papal assumptions of power. When Pope Gregory IX excommunicated him, it was because he would not carry out papal orders and join in the Church's intrigues. With a flair of genius, Frederick wrote a letter and sent copies to all the kings and queens of Europe, an indictment against the papacy for the Pope's political meddling and ambition, even suggesting the unification of Europe against the papacy. Wisely, he directed the monarchies of Europe to the immense ill-gotten wealth of the Church. This terrible threat to the Roman Church was 690 years, 138 times 5, after the rise of the papacy in 538 AD. Despite excommunication, Frederick II embarked on the Sixth Crusade and consulted with the Sultan of Egypt, which resulted with a treaty on financial matters that resulted with the transfer of Jerusalem to Christian control. The peaceful takeover gained Frederick fame throughout Europe, and he was proclaimed King of Jerusalem. He returned to Germany with his armies and found that in his absence the Pope had sent the papal armies into Germany, but Frederick easily ran them out of his country. The Pope even granted him absolution from excommunication. Frederick was King of Sicily, of Germany and many domains, and known as the Emperor of the West. The crusade would last on through 1229 AD. 1. A short history of the world. 4. Wars that changed the world.